All right, well, thank you everyone for joining us to learn a little bit more about the Bachelor of Science in Food and Resource Economics, or the FRE program. Really excited to have you with us today. As I introduced in the main room, my name is Christine. I am the Director of Student Services, supporting students across all of our undergraduate programs, including the FRE program, and really excited to have those of you who have been admitted in the session with us today. Congratulations. Really excited to have you here. We have three amazing speakers who are here with us today who are going to get a chance to share with you three unique perspectives about the FRE program. Carol McAusland, a professor in the Food and Resource Economics program, Tuan, who is a current student, and Sasha, who is an alumna. So you'll have a chance to hear three different perspectives about the amazing program that is FRE. Without further ado, I will hand it over to Carol, who's going to share some slides with you and help share with you a little bit more about what you can look forward to as an FRE student. So Carol, over to you.
So can you see my slides? Okay. And I'm not actually going to be sharing with you all that you are going to experience in FRE. Actually, I think I may have misunderstood the instructions. And so what I've done is I was going to introduce myself and then say, a few things about UBC and FRE. So my background, so I'm local, Kamloops and Toronto, then back to Vancouver. Christine, I am also a double alumnus, or only double, not triple. And then I went to Michigan for my PhD, and then off to California and Maryland for work, and then back to Vancouver, and it's so lovely to be back. I'm an environmental economist, so things that I've done in addition to doing research. For a while, I was a co-editor at the Journal of Environmental Economics and Management, which was the flagship journal of the North American Association of Environmental Economists, and for a stint as the chair of the Canadian Resource and Environmental Economics Association, where I had the joy of taking a nationwide conference online during COVID. Let's see where you will see me in FRE. So one of them is I will be adding an administrative role to my plate. This coming year, I'll be the program director starting this summer, and I'll be doing that for 3 years. That won't bring me particularly into contact with students, although you might occasionally hear people saying, well, we got to ask the program director. So that would be me. Where you'll see me will be in undergraduate teaching. So I teach 2 classes in the FRE undergraduate program. So one is the economics of international trade and the environment. And we study things like externalities. So when I do something and it has effects on people through something other than the market. So when I drive my car and it pollutes the air and releases carbon, those would be externalities. And in this class, we look at the management of externalities in a global economy. So some countries are big and they can just think about everything from a domestic perspective. Canada is big physically, but we're not big population-wise or GDP-wise. And so we are an open economy. And so there are all sorts of extra considerations that come in when you're trying to manage your environment and your impact on the global environment when you're an open economy. Some of the issues we'll look at are pollution havens, carbon leakage. So if we do stuff to reduce our emissions here in Canada, how much of those reductions are just going to leak over to other countries and they're going to pollute in our stead? And then we'll look at kind of big picture stuff like that. What's the evidence? What's the policy? What are the recommendations? And then sometimes we'll be looking at much smaller, not smaller scale, I should say, more focused issues. An example is ivory trade and poaching. If we ban trade in ivory, is that going to help or hurt elephants? If we allow the sale of ivory from the governments they want to do it because they're going to get money for conservation, but then it's going to lead to this flood of ivory out there. And what's that going to do through the economy? So that's one class I teach. Another one I teach is FRE 460, which is economics of food consumption. And this is more of the study of internalities. Economists like to study creatures that make decisions in their own best interest with full information and lots of rationality. And then there's humans who are often making decisions that aren't always with their long-term best interests in mind. And so this is a study of food consumption, and internalities can be a big part of that. And then we look at things like, are corrective taxes, like the idea of a carbon tax, but for internalities, are those effective? How big are the effects, and what might the drawbacks be? We look at, and then we look at a number of kind of case studies, things like food waste. What are some strategies to target that? How effective are food waste taxes at actually reducing food waste? And if I was going to give some punchlines, one of them is, with the corrective taxes like soda taxes, they don't have much of an effect. Where we have seen food waste taxes, surprisingly, the effects have been quite large. And a lot of times there are behavioral explanations as to why some policies might be outsized in effect and others really smaller than you'd expect. And we look at things like ethical labels. How effective is something like an eco label or a fair trade label? How effective is that going to be at actually achieving the objective that you have in mind? So those are places where I teach in the undergraduate program. For folks who are watching this video later on who are not going to be in the FRE program, both of these classes are designed so that they can be open to students who have taken just like Econ 101. So we a lot of the tools that you would get in your, say, second and third year economics classes, we can teach in the class. And so these classes are open to students with a wide variety of backgrounds. And I've always really liked that in these classes, because we have students from psychology or nutrition or political science or chemistry, and everybody's got different perspectives. For research, what I do, well, I'm an environmental economist. Two projects I have on the go right now is figuring out who's at risk from green transition. And in this case, we're actually looking at what kind of firms are at risk. A lot of the measures that are currently being used are just, what's your carbon footprint of your company? And that's really not a good measure of whether your company is at risk. So we're trying to come up with metrics that the finance industry can use, and also that the federal government can use to figure out, if we've got carbon taxes in place for industries, which companies are going to be facing a lot of risk from that and which ones are not. And relatedly, I have other projects on designing a leakage-proof carbon policies. What can we do if we're worried about leakage? So that's just what I do in my research time. And I'm going to close with why I love UBC. So diverse student body, people from all over the world, people with lots of different backgrounds. And the campus is great, not just the physical infrastructure, but also UBC has so many strong programs in terms of research and teaching. And so it's just lovely to be in a place where there's so many strong units. And the impact that the research and then our students go on to have is global. So it's just really nice to be in a place that's so effective. And FRE in particular, it's the small classes. I love that the other people who are here with me, I've taught Sasha, I've taught Tuan. I know what you're working on, and you get individualized feedback. So in the small classes, we can have you write stuff and give you feedback on your writing. And you get to know your peers and you get to know your professors. And that's just one of the things I think is so fabulous about FRE is the small classes, small program at this point in time, which is a real feature, not a bug. And then why I love, and we always have to close with, Vancouver. It's hard to take bad pictures of Vancouver, although I did not take this particular photo. We are next to some of the best wilderness you'll ever experience. So this is a picture that's taken from the top of Hollyburn Mountain. In winter, you can get there within an hour of campus, depending on what time of day you travel. And then we've got kayaking and mountains galore all over the place. It's such a great place to be. So that's the end of my slides.
Thank you so much, Carol, for sharing some of your academic and personal background, what drew you to and continues to inspire you here at UBC and in Vancouver. I know these photos in our backgrounds are of the incredible cherry blossoms we have here on campus. These are the light pink ones that have already come and gone, and now the dark pink ones are out in full force. And I grew up outside of Vancouver, moved here myself to go to UBC, and have absolutely fallen in love with Vancouver and the campus, and have built my entire academic and career here on campus. And Vancouver is a pretty special place to be. Tuan, I know you grew up here in Vancouver. This is your hometown. So I'm going to let you go next to introduce yourself to the group. Share with us a little bit about what your experience has been like in the Food and Resource Economics program and what you enjoy most about the program. Maybe it's some of the similar things that Carol highlighted, or maybe you have some of your own unique perspectives. So Tuan, over to you.
Hi, thank you, Christine. Hello, everyone. My name is Tuan. I'm a fourth year food and resource economics student. And unlike a lot of other FRA students, I actually transferred into the FRA program quite late into my degree. Before getting to UBC, I actually came from Killarney Secondary School, which, for a fun fact, the previous dean of the Land and Food System faculty actually graduated back in way back in like the 1970s or 80s. So, I share, something with our previous dean. And back in high school, I actually did a lot of STEM courses with no business or econ background. So I went into UBC without any way of knowing like if FRE was the right program for me. And only after taking like the statistics course in my second year is when I found like, hey, like food and resource economics is actually interesting. It aligns with how I think about like the world. And to me, it's just like, this is something that I can see myself doing in the future, right? As Carol mentioned earlier, like economists like to look at like rational behavior of humans, which is also why I took a lot of psychology courses as like my unrestricted electives in my first and second year. Because to me, that's what I also like to study is like I like to see how humans should react in like this logical situations and like what are these like ideal choices. So I never thought about that part of me before I entered UBC. But once I got into this program, once I started exploring certain courses at UBC, I kind of found that like that's where my interests lie. And I knew that like FRE was like a great program for me. And on top of that, I do enjoy the individual feedback that I'm given because I struggle with learning disabilities. So being able to be close with my professors and to be able to have this like close connection where I can ask for help and to better understand what I'm learning, I can build a deeper connection with what I do. And that has honestly helped me in both like my academics and both in like a mental sense, is where like I feel like I'm learning and I'm enjoying the learning process, which is a lot different to how I used to think about learning back in like first and second year. So I've told you a lot about like how I got to FRE, but like what am I doing now in the FRE program? Well, I did take a class with Carol. I just took the FRE 460 course on the economics of food consumption. And honestly, that class was quite interesting. We also did a debate, which was like one of the big points about that course. And I'll be honest with you, like my debate partner was also was a peer that I've also had to do a debate with in a prior course. So like I said, like mentioned earlier, FRE is a small cohort. So you actually get to know a lot of the people that are in your cohort. And then you also do projects with them a lot of the time, unlike in other faculties or other programs where like every single course is like new people, new thing, new everything, and it's very overwhelming. But I feel like FRE bundles it up in a nice package for you to be able to like do your best and not worry about having to like everything being brand new. So yeah, like honestly, FRE to me is just something just like a nice place. Like it brings me back to those high school like situations where you get to like speak to your teachers, you get to be close with your friend, collaborate, and honestly just focus on learning rather than being so overwhelmed by like bigger things in life.
Juan, thank you so much for sharing. It's obviously a really unique pathway that you found into the FRE program, and really excited to hear that you're so inspired and learning so much and being both challenged as well as comforted within the program itself. That's a really nice journey to hear. Thank you for sharing. Well, we also have an alumna with us today, Sasha. So Sasha, your journey in and out of FRE was a little bit different than Tuan. So I'd love for you to share with the audience what drew you to the FRE program and what you've been up to since you graduated.
Yeah, happy to. So, hi everyone, my name's Sasha, and I'm an alumni of both the Bachelor and Master's of Food and Resource programs. I spent 5 years at UBC, wrapping up my bachelor's in 2023 and my master's in 2024. Like Tuan said, when I was in high school, I took a lot of STEM courses. I was really interested in biology and chemistry and hard sciences, but I was also intrigued by business, and I didn't have the chance to take any business or economics courses because they weren't offered at my high school. But that concept still intrigued me. So I came to the FRE program with a real interest in merging science with real-world business applications. Since I finished my FRE degrees, I I got a job working for the federal government. I work for Employment and Social Development Canada. And specifically, my work is related to the National School Food Program, which is a $1 billion 5-year investment that the Government of Canada is making. The government is working with provinces, territories, and Indigenous partners to help ensure that children across Canada have access to nutritious breakfasts, lunches, and snacks while they're at school, so no child goes hungry. During my time at LFS, I gained many different skills that are helping me in my current role. I'd say first, in the Food and Resource Economics program, especially in your 3rd and 4th year courses, you're going to do a lot of team projects. You'll work very closely with people in your cohort. As Tuan said, you'll become really good friends with them. And collaboration has been a really important skill in my job. I work closely with people on my team, and we consult with people in other departments across other teams as well. These projects are really great opportunities to practice your communication, learning about different people's perspectives, and how to work effectively in a team. Through the FRE program, I also gained experience using specific programming languages and softwares that are really helpful. So in my 3rd and 4th year, I took courses related to conservation and geography, where I used to learn to use a program that's called ArcGIS, and that helps you create maps and analyze data. And this has been a really helpful skill in my role because I'm working with a lot of policy folks who don't have experience using data, but because I have that skill set, I can kind of translate the data elements to people to make policy decisions. I also learned to use a programming software called R, which is used to analyze data and create graphs and maps and other kinds of visualizations. And this is a really important skill if you want to work in government. A lot of teams will look for experience using that platform. So if you take courses like upper year econometrics or causal inference, which is just another upper year course, you'll get some experience using those softwares. And another really great thing about LFS is it really emphasizes what's called systems thinking. It's thinking about components and their interrelationship within a system rather than focusing on one single component in isolation. So if you change one component in the system, what effects does it have on everything else in the system? And this is important for the National School Food Program because providing children with meals doesn't just reduce hunger, but it also can create stronger relationships with local farmers and local food producers. It can increase children's knowledge about nutrition and how food is prepared and other cultural traditions. So some of these effects aren't well understood, and they're things that my team is looking into. We're looking into the broad effects of the National School Food Program over time. And it's an exciting area of future data and research. These are some of the specific skills and knowledge that I gained during my program that's helping me in my role now. And I look forward to meeting you all later and connecting later on.
Thank you so much, Sasha. It is so exciting to hear of the journey you've had after graduation and the success that you've had and the opportunities you've had in your new role to be able to apply the learning that you did both in your undergraduate and your master's program. Carol, I'm curious from a professor perspective, when you think about the kinds of skills that Sasha speaks to, when you're thinking about the value of a food and resource economics degree and thinking about graduates and kind of moving students through the program, you have an amazing group of faculty colleagues around you who are really dedicated to supporting students to thrive and succeed. What are you thinking about as instructors in terms of the legacy that you want to leave with students and the type of learning that you hope they leave the FRE program with?
See, there's so many things that I want everyone to go out into the world doing and thinking. So I guess the thing that we're always emphasizing is the critical thinking, and specifically, does this cause that? How well, I guess the thing that always interests me is we think this causes that, but are there things that might happen along the way that are not what you expected? So it's the thinking through what I want to do something that's lead to a particular outcome in the world, but what are the ways that it could misfire, end up causing problems or fall short? And so it's like sometimes there's, I'm trying to think of if something specific comes to mind. I guess that would be for another time. I could put that in a class. So the critical thinking about kind of the big picture, the feedbacks, how things are interconnected. I tend to think about those things in a framework of an economy, but there's also going to be the ecological impacts. And then this is a nice thing about students who are coming through LFS programs is that they are expected and required to be taking some courses outside of their very narrow area. And so they have an understanding of what the biological feedbacks might be. So it's the, I don't know if it's interconnectedness, but it's the, what is causal and what does it cause?
I saw a lot of nods from Sasha and Tuan. So clearly those are experiences that they're having as they move through. Tuan, I'm curious from your perspective as you're still engaged with the program. So far, what do you look back on as a wonderful complementary course to your FRE and Econ core courses that you think really helps to engage you in the ways that Carol was talking about that critical thinking and helping to see some of those causal effects? Does a course come to mind for you that is outside of your FRE and Econ courses that helps you to do that really effectively?
I think like in terms of like an LFS course at least, like I do remember taking like LFS 250 and LFS 350, which is part of like the LFS core series of courses that like all LFS students have to take. And that's like a course where we have to like investigate these like ongoing issues in our world in terms of like the food systems and how we apply like interdisciplinary learning and like how like LFS is part in trying to solve these like world food system like food issues. So that course really like helps you like build on your critical thinking because you're not only taking this perspective from your own perspective, but you're also then like checking like, hey, like where are the biases in my own thinking and my current way of thinking, and how can I change that to like maybe like open myself up to like a different perspective? Because sometimes like a solution doesn't come from like what you know, but maybe what someone else knows. And like you need to be very accepting of like new information for you to be able to like find like that optimal solution. And in terms of like courses outside of LFS, like I mentioned earlier, taking like psychology courses really helped me like understand like both human behavior as like at an individual level and also like human behavior as a society, because those are like the two different streams of psychology when you're like investigating how humanity is as a whole and how like cultures are formed and like how culture influences our decisions. Like those are like very important things that we need to consider because like one solution in one part of the world might not work for another part of the world just because of like cultural differences and like at some point like genetic differences as well. So I think like these two courses have really helped me like become like more open and be able to like see like deeper solutions.
Thank you so much for sharing, Tuan. I think it's so exciting. I know for myself and getting the chance to meet and learn from so many students across this faculty of like the curiosities that you all have and the learning that you're doing and the connections that you're making between those different courses is just really inspiring. So thank you so much for sharing that. Sasha, as an alumni, I'm curious, when you kind of think back to where you were as a new student, just kind of starting out on the cusp of your FRE program, I'm wondering if you have any advice for the students who have just been admitted and are about to begin this journey in terms of how they can approach this program if they're looking to turn it into a meaningful career like you have.
Sure. So I think for that question, I'd have two main pieces of advice. The first one is really take advantage of those small class sizes, really get to know your classmates, And your professors are always available to help you not only with your assignments and your exam studying, but they're really there to give you like personal advice on your career, advise you on skills that will help you develop your career. So take advantage of that for sure. Another thing that I would advise is once you start getting into courses that excite you, like really go the extra mile, put a lot of work into those projects, and you can develop a portfolio of projects that you've worked on and use that in future interviews. You can use that to showcase the skills. You can say, I know how to program in R and I can show you this graph that I developed, or I know how to create a dashboard in Tableau. Here's something that I can give you the link to a website showing you what I've done. So using those projects and assignments that you're going to be working on to showcase your learning and to be able to communicate it to a future employer, it's a really helpful thing.
I'm so glad you mentioned that, Sasha, because that I think is such a really important thing that maybe as an undergraduate student, you don't understand the depth of the work that you're doing and the output that you're creating, whether it's a website, a graph, a report, a presentation, whatever it may be. That is definitely something that students can use to demonstrate that they not only have the skills, but the experience to head into some new positions after graduation. So I'm really grateful that you shared that from your perspective. That's good advice that we try to share, but I think sometimes as an undergrad, it's a little hard to see the value of that from a career lens. So that's really special for students to know and to think about. And I love your advice of putting in a lot of effort into your classes. That is really, really good advice. Go to class, study hard, all of those things. So that's really helpful. Thank you so much for sharing. Carol, is there something that you consider as like really valuable transferable skills that FRE grads are heading out into the world with other than, or maybe, just to highlight something that Sasha's already shared, or is there something different that comes to mind for you?
Let me think before answering. I guess data analysis. The quantitative skills are really valuable in so many different workplaces. So that's one. Another one is one that doesn't show up, is a little harder to communicate on your CV, but is incredibly valuable regardless of whether you go onto food and resource economics or even onto economics. And it would be the formulating an argument and recruiting the evidence that supports it and identifying whether or not your argument is actually true by investigating the evidence that contradicts what you thought was true. So the critical thinking skills of, this thing I think is true, can I prove it? Is there evidence to actually support my belief? And then questioning your belief. So seeing, I think this thing is true, but can I also show that the opposite is true? And if I can, then it may mean that the evidence is just consistent with my belief, but it's not proof of my belief. And so those real critical thinking of analyzing an argument and understanding whether it is strong and whether it's proof or whether you've just got a lot of evidence that matches your story but really doesn't prove it. And I think that's just so important in so many different dimensions of what people are going to be doing once they leave university. Oh, you mean?
Sorry, I so agree with you. And I think, regardless of the career path that any of these new students choose, those are types of skills that even in my world, working in higher education within a student services unit that supports undergraduate students, those are the types of things we are doing as professionals as well, just applying some of those skills in different ways. So I really appreciated that you shared that. And I can see again, Tuan and Sasha nodding and nodding along. So it's really exciting to know that those of you who have chosen to apply to and accept those offers into the Food and Resource Economics program. I hope some of this feedback has inspired you to get excited about what's ahead. We've talked a lot about the program itself, the value of what you're learning inside the classroom, and how it's going to prepare you for life after graduation. I'd like to flip the tables before we wrap up here, though, to talk a little bit about some of just the fun, exciting opportunities that exist maybe outside the classroom in terms of, Carol, you highlighted in your introduction, UBC is a really great place. The campus itself is, as this photo behind us indicates, also beautiful, but it's also just a really expansive community. And although the FRE program is small and the Faculty of Land and Food Systems is a close-knit community, the value of being part of the larger UBC community cannot be overstated, as well, whether it's accessing resources that are available to you to support you when you may be challenged or struggling academically, socially, emotionally. There are lots of great supports for you as students as you're learning to navigate the world. Some of you by yourself for the very first time, and gaining some of that independence, but it also has an incredible amount of great opportunities for you to get involved, whether you want to join one of the over 300 student clubs, you want to participate in student government, you want to be part of UBC Rec, you want to, go and explore this beautiful campus. So I'm wondering, Sasha, why don't we start with you, since you're a little further out, reflecting back on your time at UBC and giving advice to these new students. What are the one or two key events or opportunities that you believe students should engage with to make the most of their UBC experience while on campus?
Oh, that's a great question. I think what stands out to me the most, thinking back on many years in LFS, was definitely Jumpstart and Imagine Week. Right at the beginning, you have the opportunity to meet people that will be in your classes as a first-year student, get to know the LFS staff and faculty, and get to explore the campus, getting to know where your classes are, how to get there quickly because you only have 10 minutes between classes, finding your routine. Yeah, I definitely recall that fondly.
Oh, so nice, because that's a real bookend, right? Like that's your first experience. So for those of you newly admitted, you will be invited a little bit later in the summer to the orientation programming opportunities, both Jumpstart, which is an opportunity for you to come to campus a little bit early and be part of a learning community of other LFS new students, and either move into residence early if you're going to be living in student housing, or you can still commute to campus if you're a local student as well, and get a little bit of that exposure to the campus before school begins. And then everyone joins together for Imagine UBC, which is the first official kickoff to your year ahead, and an opportunity, as Sasha said, for you to get to meet staff, students, and faculty, all from LFS. And it brings the entire community of new students together for a full day of exciting programming. So we're really excited that that was such a positive memory for you, Sasha. Imagine UBC Day is one of my favorite days of the year. Always look forward to it. And it's so exciting to welcome all the new students into the faculty. Tuan, I'm just curious, as you're kind of approaching the end of your UBC journey, getting a little bit closer to graduation, what are some of the things that you've gotten involved in that you'd like the students to know about so that they can take advantage of those things once they get here?
Like for me, I'm a really strong advocate for our undergraduate society, so as like LFS US. Over the past 2 years, I've held two positions. My first position, and right from the get-go, I was the vice president of finance for the undergraduate society, where I got to use like the skills I learned in FRE and apply it to the budget, which was like at that time was only like $80,000. But in terms of like yourself, right? You never imagine yourself being able to like manage such a large amount of money so early on in your career. So like I was able to make sure that the LFSUS runs on a sustainable budget, which makes sure like we have some extra room to make sure that we don't go over budget. Everything stays within like certain guidelines, following like our AMS, which is the All Managed Society, like the guidelines between those policies as well. So it's really a great opportunity to apply what you know from FRE and apply it to your undergrad society, and then also to benefit other undergraduate students. Because like I said, like being part of the undergrad society means you're serving your fellow peers. So like if you're someone who really wants to create like the school spirit and like wants to just give back to like your peers, I feel like the undergrad society is like a great place to do it, because you have many different programs and like different ways of interacting with your peers through the undergrad society. Because another program or like another role that I had in the undergrad society is the Wednesday night dinner manager, which Wednesday night dinner is an event that happens bi-weekly. So every 2 weeks, And essentially myself and like a few, like two other managers and our Wednesday night dinner team, we organized a 3-course menu at the price of now $6 per LFS student. So very affordable for students. And these meals are all vegetarian, so no meat products at all. And our goal is to just create a menu that is essentially $6 per person, get as close to breaking even as possible throughout the year, and just have a plate, like a wonderful dinner where LFS students and even non-LFS students could come and connect and learn about menus and different food items from different cultures, and also cooked in a way that's not not traditional, like some traditional meat meals are like made vegetarian. So people also learn about how to cook. We also are able to connect with LFS students of different programs, and also just be there, enjoy your time. And it's hosted in the Macmillan building, which is the LFS building. So you just come and enjoy like spending time in the LFS building.
Thank you so much for sharing that, Tuan. It's really exciting to think about your volunteer kind of like engagement and the parallels that you found within your academic program as well. The Undergraduate Society is a really excellent way for students to get involved and have an impact, as you said, and it's a really active community of students with a really great support from the leadership team here in LFS to elevate their ideas and to bring them forward for students. And then Wednesday night dinners is just classic LFS and really delicious. So if you're looking for a great meal, that's a wonderful place to go and build community at the same time. Well, Carol, you may not have had a recent undergraduate experience, but you spoke to how much you loved this campus and this city. So you had that beautiful shot from the top of Hollyburn Mountain. I'm just curious, for those students for whom, even if Vancouver is their hometown, what are the things, places and spaces maybe on campus or in the city that students should put on their bucket list to make sure they get to visit or experience while they're undergrads here at UBC?
Let's see. For tourists who are coming, the first thing I say is go to Granville Island, just because there's so much good food to eat there. And if somebody is here for a while, then there's the hiking, there's the skiing. My personal favorite is the kayaking. We are close to some of the best kayaking in the world. And I am biased, but I also, when you look at rankings of the top spots to go sea kayaking in the world, they include British Columbia is usually in the top 1 or 2. And the paddling here. So there is nothing quite like having, and this has happened to me, having a killer whale swim under your kayak. Yeah, it's still exhilarating all these years later when I think about that. And that happened to me because I went around a corner and we ran into a pod. You are supposed to stay far away from marine animals, but sometimes they surface up near your boat. So last summer I had one probably come up 4 or 5 meters away from me. This would have been humpbacks up in off of Vancouver Island. So there is great outdoor stuff here. And I think the UBC Outdoors Club is still taking people on amazing trips, and you can dive. There's even diving here in British Columbia. So some of the stuff is obvious, like the hiking and the skiing, but there's so many other great opportunities, and you can do that stuff through UBC's extracurricular clubs.
Well, that is an incredible experience. I'm so envious and so like happy for you that you had that opportunity. For those of you who are joining us on the West Coast for the first time, like I said, I didn't grow up here. I moved here and I'm constantly in awe. I was out on Main Mall today for a little bit of a walk and just seeing the snow-capped mountains in the background, the beautiful ocean and the gorgeous flowers. I mean, it really does make you grateful for this incredible space that we are able to work, learn, live, play, and come together on. And I think that's a really wonderful place to close today's session. I hope that for all of those of you who've been newly admitted, that you are inspired by Sasha, Tuan, and Carol's stories, perspectives, advice, and that you're putting some of these little nuggets away so that you can take advantage of them and thrive and, you know, make the best of your UBC experience once you're here. here. UBC's motto is Tuum Est, it's yours. So you get to craft the experience that you want to have, and you can take all of these experiences and put them into a little blender and come up with the best experience that you want to have while you're here. We are very excited to welcome you into the Faculty of Land and Food Systems, the university's Point Grey campus, and congratulations. And thank you so much, Sasha, Tuan, and Carol, for staying with us and sharing your perspectives. I know that there will be a lot of students walking away very inspired after watching this video. Thanks, everybody, and have a wonderful evening.